Welcome to our exploration of the culture concept in anthropology. Culture shapes our worldview, influences our behaviors, and binds us together as communities. But what exactly is culture and why is it so important to anthropologists? In this video, we'll journey through the history of cultural anthropology, meet key thinkers, and discover how the study of culture has evolved. From coffee shop conversations to fieldwork in remote communities, we'll see how culture is defined, experienced, and debated. Let's begin by setting the stage for our journey into the heart of what makes us human. Before diving deeper, let's outline our learning objectives. We'll compare ethnocentrism and cultural relativism, explore the contributions of early anthropologists like Sir James Frazer and Sir E.B. Tyler, and examine the evolution of fieldwork from armchair anthropology to participant observation. We'll also discuss the impact of Franz Boas and his students, and consider the ethical challenges that arise in anthropological research. These objectives will guide our understanding as we navigate the complex world of culture. Imagine sitting in a bustling coffee shop, surrounded by the aroma of fresh coffee and the hum of conversation. Anthropologists often observe everyday life to understand culture. In this setting, we meet Bob, a man with a service dog who shares his thoughts on culture. Bob emphasizes the importance of language in cultural identity and expresses concern about the effects of globalization and consumerism. His perspective, though not academic, touches on key anthropological themes: language, tradition, and the impact of change. This simple coffee shop encounter highlights how culture is lived and experienced daily. Anthropologists often debate what culture truly means. For Bob, culture is closely tied to language and tradition. For anthropologists, defining culture goes beyond a simple explanation. It involves understanding how people create meaning, maintain traditions, and adapt to change. The question of what culture is remains central to anthropology, prompting scholars to explore its many dimensions. As we move forward, we'll see how definitions of culture have evolved and why they matter for understanding human societies. Stories are a universal part of culture. They teach lessons, preserve traditions, and connect generations. Whether through fables, folktales, or tall tales, storytelling helps societies communicate values and navigate challenges. Stories can also serve as social control, reinforcing norms and discouraging unwanted behaviors. Across cultures, common themes like the battle between good and evil or the hero's quest emerge. Storytelling is not just entertainment, it's a powerful tool for cultural preservation and education. Many stories, characters encounter the other, people whose customs and beliefs differ from their own. Jonathan Swift's Gulliver's Travels is a classic example. Gulliver, shipwrecked among the tiny Lilliputians, is both an outsider and a curiosity. The story explores cultural differences, power dynamics, and the idea of the other. Both Gulliver and the Lilliputians see each other as strange. This concept helps anthropologists understand how societies define themselves in relation to those who are different. Early anthropologists often relied on stories and reports from others to describe unfamiliar cultures. This approach, known as armchair anthropology, meant that scholars rarely interacted directly with the people they studied. Instead, they interpreted cultures from a distance, often through a biased lens. These early accounts shaped public perceptions but were limited by ethnocentrism, the belief that one's own culture is superior. As anthropology evolved, so did the methods used to study culture. Ethnocentrism is the tendency to view one's own culture as the standard against which others are measured. Early anthropologists often judged other societies as primitive or less advanced, especially during the colonial era. These views reinforced stereotypes and justified colonial domination. Recognizing ethnocentrism is crucial for anthropologists, as it challenges them to approach other cultures with openness and respect, rather than judgment. Armchair anthropology refers to the early practice of studying cultures without direct fieldwork. Scholars like Sir James Frazer and Sir E.B. Tyler relied on second-hand accounts from missionaries, travelers, and officials. While their work laid the foundation for anthropology, it was limited by a lack of first-hand experience. This method often led to misunderstandings and reinforced ethnocentric ideas. The shift toward fieldwork would later transform the discipline. E.B. Tyler, a pioneering anthropologist, defined culture as that complex whole which includes knowledge, belief, art, law, morals, custom, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by man as a member of society. This broad definition remains influential today. Tyler's work was shaped by the scientific ideas of his time, including Darwin's theory of evolution. He believed that cultures evolved from simple to complex forms, a view that would later be challenged. 19th-century anthropologists often believed that cultures evolved through stages, from savagery to barbarism to civilization. These theories, known as cultural evolutionism, reflected the biases of their time and have since been discredited. The idea that some cultures are more advanced than others is now recognized as ethnocentric and inaccurate. Modern anthropology rejects these hierarchies, focusing instead on understanding cultures on their own terms. Anthropology changed dramatically when scholars began conducting fieldwork. Bronislaw Malinowski, Alfred Radcliffe Brown, Franz Boas, and Margaret Mead pioneered participant observation, living among the people they studied. This hands-on approach allowed anthropologists to gain deeper insights into daily life, social structures, and cultural practices. Fieldwork became the cornerstone of modern anthropology, moving the discipline beyond the limitations of armchair research. Participant observation involves living within a community, taking part in daily activities, and observing social interactions firsthand. Malinowski's work in the Trobriand Islands set a new standard for ethnographic research. By immersing himself in local life, he learned about kinship economics, rituals, and more. This method provided richer, more accurate data and helped anthropologists understand cultures from an insider's perspective. Sometimes anthropologists become deeply integrated into the communities they study, a process known as going native. This can involve taking on local roles, forming close relationships, or even participating in rituals. While going native can provide unique insights, it also raises ethical questions about objectivity and the boundaries between researcher and participant. Balancing involvement with professional distance remains a challenge in fieldwork. Europe, anthropologists focused on how societies are structured and how social institutions maintain stability. Functionalism, championed by Malinowski and Radcliffe Brown, examined how traditions and institutions, like family or education, meet human needs and keep societies organized. This approach highlighted the importance of social structures, but was later criticized for overlooking social change and conflict. While functionalism helped clarify the role of social institutions, it struggled to explain why societies change or why they develop certain institutions over others. Critics argued that functionalism viewed cultures as too stable and ignored the realities of conflict and transformation. Despite its limitations, functionalism contributed to a more nuanced understanding of how culture and society interact. North America, anthropology developed a distinct focus on cultural relativism, the idea that cultures must be understood on their own terms. France Bose led the shift, emphasizing the importance of fieldwork and empirical methods. Bose and his students argued that cultural practices should not be judged by outside standards, but appreciated within their own context. This approach helped move anthropology away from ethnocentrism and toward greater respect for cultural diversity. Cultural relativism is a foundational concept in anthropology. It means seeking to understand beliefs and behaviors from the perspective of the culture being studied, rather than imposing outside judgments. Bose promoted this principle after his experiences with the Inuit in the Arctic, realizing that cultural practices are shaped by environment and history. Cultural relativism encourages open-mindedness and empathy in research. Bose trained a generation of influential anthropologists, including Ruth Benedict, Margaret Mead, and Alfred Kroeber. Benedict explored how culture shaped personality, while Mead's research in Samoa challenged assumptions about adolescence and gender. Kroeber studied cultural change and the importance of language. Together, they expanded the concept of culture and emphasized the need for holistic, context-sensitive research. Oas and his students introduced the idea of enculturation, the process by which individuals learn their culture. They also promoted holism, the practice of considering all aspects of a society, including history, environment, and social structures. These concepts help anthropologists understand how culture is transmitted and how it shapes identity, emotions, and behavior. Language is a key element of culture. Anthropologists like Kroeber and later Clifford Geertz emphasized the role of language in transmitting culture and expressing complex ideas. Geertz argued that culture is a system of symbols and meanings, communicated through speech and behavior. This symbolic approach highlights how people use language and rituals to make sense of their world. As anthropology matured, ethical challenges became more prominent. Participant observation brings researchers into close contact with communities, raising questions about consent, privacy, and representation. After World War II, formal codes of ethics were developed to protect research participants. The American Anthropological Association's code emphasizes doing no harm, obtaining informed consent, and maintaining honesty and respect. Anislaw Malinowski's private diary, published after his death, revealed personal biases and controversial opinions about the people he studied. This raised questions about the separation between personal feelings and professional research. Even respected anthropologists can struggle with ethnocentrism and subjectivity. Malinowski's case reminds us that ethical research requires constant self-reflection and honesty. Research among the Yanomami people in the Amazon led to one of anthropology's most debated ethical controversies. Allegations against Napoleon Chagnon and James Neal included claims of unethical experimentation and misrepresentation. Investigations by the American Anthropological Association were inconclusive, highlighting the complexities of truth, perspective, and responsibility in anthropological research. Anthropologists strive to tell truthful stories about the people they study, but differences in perspective and interpretation are inevitable. The Yanomami case shows how difficult it can be to separate fact from fiction, especially when research impacts real communities. Ethical anthropology requires transparency, accountability, and a commitment to representing others fairly. Culture is not static. Globalization, technology, and social media are rapidly transforming how people connect and express themselves. Online communities create new forms of culture that cross traditional boundaries. Anthropologists now study digital cultures, raising questions about the nature of virtual communities and the future of fieldwork. The study of culture continues to adapt to a changing world. Emily, one of our anthropologists, reflects on her experiences living with the Inuit. She found that despite differences in location and customs, core values like caring and cooperation were shared. Her training in anthropology helped her appreciate both the similarities and differences between cultures. Emily's story illustrates how fieldwork can transform our understanding of ourselves and others. Scylla shares her journey from a Portuguese-Canadian background to living with indigenous tribes in Kenya. She discovered that storytelling and cultural identity are valued across societies. Her experiences reinforced the idea that all human groups define themselves through culture, and that the meanings of culture vary widely. Fieldwork deepened her appreciation for cultural diversity and the importance of tradition. Finding culture is like assembling a puzzle with many pieces. Scholars, storytellers, and everyday people all contribute to our understanding. There is no single, absolute definition of culture. Instead, the concept continues to evolve as new voices and experiences are added. The journey to understand culture is ongoing, reflecting the complexity and richness of human life. Let's review some key terms. Armchair anthropology is research without direct contact. Cultural determinism sees behavior as shaped by culture, not genetics. Cultural evolutionism is the outdated idea that societies progress through stages. Cultural relativism urges understanding from within a culture. Enculturation is learning culture. Ethnocentrism is judging others by one's own standards. Functionalism focuses on how institutions support society. Going native means full integration into a group. Holism takes a broad view of behavior. Participant observation involves joining in daily life. Structural functionalism studies how institutions maintain order. The other refers to those seen as different. Dr. Priscilla Medeiros and Dr. Emily Cowell are the voices behind this chapter. Priscilla's work focuses on health, gender, and community-based research, with field experience in Kenya and Canada. Emily specializes in the cultural history of the Canadian Arctic and has led research projects in remote communities. Both bring rich real-world experience to their teaching and research, embodying the spirit of adventure and curiosity that defines anthropology. Anthropology is a dynamic field, constantly evolving as new questions and challenges arise. The study of culture remains central, helping us understand ourselves and others in an interconnected world. Whether in a coffee shop or a distant village, anthropologists seek to uncover the patterns, meanings, and stories that make us human. The journey to define culture continues, inviting us all to reflect on our place in the world.